Death is not your concern. A talk by Avatar Adidar Samraj from Easy Death. Because of your position in the midst of things, you tend to think of death over against life. But when you begin to understand your actual situation, then you see the process that manifests as living, experiencing and dying as a continuum is a single process. As the seeker, as Narcissus, the eternally recurring mortal, you tend to think that death is fundamentally a physical event. Because you tend to be frightened, you like to think that death stands over against your psyche. You like to think that perhaps the psyche, that individuated consciousness, that sense of forms and complications and images and ideas and experiences and memories, survives death. In truth, however, death is not merely a physical event, but a psychophysical event, in which not only the body dies, but the psyche also. Therefore, while alive, you must enjoy wisdom relative not only to the body and the world, but also to the psyche. The life-death process is a necessary and ultimately happy transformation in which one's fundamental existence may be realized. When you examine life and death from the point of view of Narcissus, who is fearful and separate, you have no tolerance for endless transformation. You have no tolerance for psychophysical life or death. Having assumed your mortality and therefore feeling that you cannot escape physical death, you try to escape psychic transformation or psychic death. The entire transformation must inevitably occur. Only when your resistance to that profound transformation breaks down can you allow its fullness to be enacted. Then you realize ecstasy with ever greater profundity, while still alive in the midst of the endless unfolding of existence. When you have realized such wisdom, then not only do you allow physical death at some point, but you also allow psychic death. If you are intelligent, you allow it while alive. In that case, you have no ultimate fear of transforming events. Then you need not defend yourself against them with philosophies, descriptions, dogmas, experiences, and psychophysical rigidity. You live fully and creatively. You pass through psychic death while alive, and you enjoy genuine understanding of your relationship to the body and its various states. You become capable of bodily death. Nevertheless, there is no reason to seek death, no reason to leave this world unnaturally. For very real and unreasonable reasons, this psychophysical manifestation is given to you to deal with, and it is fitted to the qualities of your karmic and pre-conscious dependence. Conditional existence is a continual test, and it contains a continual possibility for lessons, for freedom, for liberation in the divine, for a truly or divinely humorous life in real God. This life is very much your appropriate business, rather than philosophical and metaphysical ruminating about how to get out of it. You are not ultimately released from the limitations of life, except in most perfect real God realization. There is no fixed world. In this world, which is essentially a vital manifestation, everything seems very much fixed and solid and moveless, and not capable of being influenced by your mere mentalizing. Yet, even this world is not fixed, as you begin to see as soon as you discover the living divine reality and truth in my company, and become truly humorous thereby. Then you see how unfixed and fluid this world is, how unfixed and fluid the vast infinite cosmos is. You see that the conditional realm is fluid, shapeless and unreasonable. Then every world becomes the real God world, because you are constantly communing with the divine person, reality and truth there. There are great dimensions, great cosmic possibilities into which you may drift and enjoy a kind of mortality that seems immortal. There are worlds where longevity is intensified almost to the point of immortality, but not to literal immortality. Even those worlds are declining and passing through cycles. There is no fixed condition anywhere within the cosmic domain. There is no immortal condition other than the eternal divine self-condition and source condition of all and all. There are countless worlds that cannot be conceived from the point of view of mankind. If you look out into the night at the infinite numbers of stars and planets, most of what you see is still only one galaxy. Through a large telescope, you may see thousands of galaxies that contain billions of possible worlds. Yet even these worlds are only visible to you within this portion of the spectrum of light, this narrow vibration in which you conceive visibility. All the visible galaxies that you can see are perhaps something like a single cell on the big toe of what may seem to you to be a gigantic person, but who is perhaps a little troll in some other world, much like this one. You cannot analyze the possible conditions in the worlds and the planes of conscious awareness and come away having gained some knowledge or having fixed for yourself some superior spiritual destiny. Investigation of the possibilities of existence can only ultimately confound you. Such investigation is a kind of suffering. It even serves you as suffering does, bringing you at last to yield to the divine. The event of a human death in the midst of all of that is nothing. People attribute such importance to death and want it to be something so terribly profound, whereas a human psychophysical death is not even worthy of being called a minor incident among the worlds. In the midst of the path of your own ultimate existence, it is not even a minor incident. It seems important only from the point of view of fear. Death seems important to the mind because the mind's fundamental function is to defend the ego. The mind is a hedge around the sense of separate existence. As such, the mind is always set against desire. The mind and desire are two opposing principles. Desire is always moving you toward a formless, even transcendental condition, always moving you toward union, toward concentration on what is outside yourself, toward attention in something beyond the knot of the self-contraction. While desire is moving you, you are also continually obsessed with the mind, which is always trying to create a hedge around the ego to continue the sense of separate existence. Thus, life is a conflict between the implosion of mind and the explosion of desire. Both movements assume the ego, or the separate and separative self. Desire wants to remove it, and mind wants to reinforce it, and make it immortal. The truth is not in following either the path of mind or the path of desire, the path of self-preservation or the path of self-fulfillment. The truth is in understanding the underlying principle in this adventure of life, which is the constant enactment of conflict. It is not death that is significant, but the living process of transcending the egoic self and identifying with the divine reality and truth or consciousness itself. That process makes everything from lunch to death something new, something known in truth, no longer a matter of concern. It makes the vast cosmic process no longer a matter of concern. The entire profound philosophical mulling over of death is appropriate only for the seeker who is still bound to the dramatization of the adventure of Narcissus. Such an individual is very much concerned with his or her own death, with his or her own spiritual destiny. Such a person is always interested in hearing all about how it is after death and about all the planes of conscious awareness and about all the various subtle dimensions of the cosmos. If, for one reason or another, such a person is able to believe these descriptions with some intensity, he or she feels somewhat consoled. Nevertheless, there is no idea that lasts beyond your final breath. The massive philosophical and psychological defense that people create through a lifetime of seeking all goes in an instant. After death, people find themselves in the same condition that they suffered while alive, or worse, with more from which they must be purified. The individual who is awake, however, understands the functions of life and mind and his or her true relationship to them, and is released from dependence upon the drama that the usual human being exercises in the midst of life functions. At the point of death, such a divinely enlightened one endures the same rip-off process as any other one, but he or she is released truly. He or she passes into a different functional existence, relieved of the secondary bondage that the usual person must deal with, everything that causes the usual person to drift back, unconscious, to lesser states and confusions and mysterious conditions. Therefore, it is better to understand the mind than to create philosophy with it. There is a deeper personality than the bodily personality that identifies with the conceptual and verbal mind. That deeper personality is what passes beyond this life, not your philosophy and all your ideas and experiences. Such things do not have the strength to pass from one room to another. You cannot even hold on to your philosophy or your mantra when you pass by a cross-legged nude on a couch. So what do you think happens from life to death and back to life again? As soon as a desire or some intense condition arises, philosophy and the usual practices go out at the bottom. If your little search is that fragile joy in life, what do you think occurs in the midst of such a profound event as psychophysical death? To be truly awake or truly enlightened is not to have privileged knowledge about what will happen after death, any more than it is to have precise knowledge about what will happen in the next moment while alive. To be divinely enlightened is not to be involved in or concerned with the fixing of future events, either for oneself or for any others. To be divinely enlightened is, instead, to be involved only with the unfolding process of divine self-realization, instantly. It is to be always involved with the process of life as a divinely conscious event in the moment, and now in this moment, and now in this moment, and now in this moment. I always see the smithereens of the worlds and know them to be illusory modifications of the divine source condition, not merely things in space. I know that the worlds themselves are not fixed, and that the worlds do not represent any fundamental limitation to the realization of divine enlightenment. Therefore, I have no concerns, no programs, no descriptions. I am utterly free of all of that. Therefore, I know that there is no straightforward description of reality, or of the cosmic domain, or of life. Only real God is. Only the paradox survives.